Good evening. My name is John Henry, and I'm an alcoholic. In this Code Blue Big Book Action and Study seminar, we're going to go through the first 164 pages of the Big Book, the recovery section, and we're going to do the work that the first 100 people who recovered said we have to do to overcome this hopeless condition of mind and body. I borrow heavily from the Golden Slippers, from Joe and Charlie, from Clancy, and from all of the giants who have gone before me. Now, I don't claim to be any big book guru or any kind of top 10 spiritualist. I'm just a simple drunk. I was almost dead from the disease. When I finally became willing to do the action in our book, I was able to recover and have a pretty good life. So I'm hoping that there's 2s and 3s and 4s of you listening to this together. You're going to need a big book. I like the large print big book, highlighter and pen. I'm going to try to get some of the paperwork that I've got online. And please bring your willingness. Please bring your willingness and your open mind. And as you're going to see, we open every session with the set-aside prayer so that we may be more open to receiving this information. Thanks for listening. Let's open with the set-aside prayer. God, please let me set aside everything I think I know about sobriety, life, and you, so that I may be open to a new experience. Amen. Okay, guys, so we are at the first big action step in the book, which is step 4. So I'm going to do a little bit of review on resentments, and bear with me. I'm feeling a little bit tired and spaced out, so I'm going to try to work myself like I sometimes do to wake up a little bit here. So our book told us, what page? Actually no page, but I'm just going to do a quick review. So our book told us that what we've done so far is going to have no effect unless we immediately follow it by a strenuous effort to face and be rid of the things in ourselves which had been blocking us. Right? It tells us that our liquor was but a symptom. That means we've got to do a 4th and a 5th step. We're going to be looking at our resentments, our fears, and the hurts and the harms that we've done other people. And we're going to ultimately, as we work through step 9, we're going to take care of all of those things. And once we become free of those things, God is going to be able to come into our life. These things have been keeping God blocked out of our life. Remember, I talked about the 7-Eleven store, right? When I got all these resentments in my head. Damn him, damn her, they can't do that to me. I'll show those guys, right? God cannot get through that. You know, we got the fears. Oh my God, what's going to happen to John? John's going to get fired. Oh my God, John's wife is going to leave him. Oh my God, John this. God can't get through that crap either, right? And then the things we do during our using that we have severe guilt and shame about, right? Because we can't control our drinking, and our drinking, we do things when we're drinking, right? And so I'm thinking to myself, I'm sober 30 days, and I sit down on the couch and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm the worst son. How could I have done that to my parents? I'm the worst boyfriend. I'm the worst employee. And we beat the hell out of ourselves, and the only way we can stop that nonsense is by drinking, because God can't get through that stuff either. So what we're going to do in this process is we're going to clean out in the fourth and 5th step, we're going to clean out a lot of our resentments, a lot of our fears, and then we're going to look at a lot of the harms and hurts that we've done other people. And we're not actually going to be taking care of those hurts and harms until we get to steps 8 and 9, but just by looking at them and seeing what motivated us, we actually get better. Now, Bill compared this, the 4th step, to a business inventory. Funny enough, I was doing my crossword at lunch today, and one of the clues was inventory was the clue, and the answer was list, right? So we're going to make a list, and we're going to put it on paper. On page 66, we read last week, it is plain that a life which includes deep resentment, right? I'll show those guys, right? We're thinking about this stuff after we got home, and it's long after people did stuff to us, leads only to futility and unhappiness. To the precise extent that we permit these, do we squander the hours that might have been worthwhile. So basically, I know for me, I wasted literally thousands of hours in my life thinking about how much these people screwed me over and how I was going to get even and how dare they do that to me, right? And then in our book, they used 5 synonyms for resentments. They used grave, fatal, die, poison, kill, right? And funny enough, one of the sentences that I love, it says, we began to see that the world and its people really dominated us. In that state, the wrongdoing of others, fancied or real, right? So in some cases, the hurts and harms that people are doing us are real, right? But a lot of times, we've made them up in our head and they don't even exist. We're thinking that people have done stuff to us and they really even didn't do it, and we have no business having a resentment against us, right? Had the power to actually kill. So our book's telling us that resentment's the number one offender, and it is going to kill us. If we cannot get these resentments out of our head, we're going to drink again. The book tells us over and over again, if we can't deal with this stuff and get it out of there so that God can get in, we will indeed drink again. So I am going to, and then we talked about there's a few prayers. Everybody wrote the prayers down from last week, the resentment prayers. Those are a great thing to have with us, right? For example, when somebody does something to you at work, right? It's like, God, please help me show this person the same tolerance, pity, and patience that I would cheerfully grant a sick friend, right? In other words, something's going on in that person's life, and he's spiritually sick right now that he did these things, right? And in addition to that, I might have done something earlier to him that set this whole thing in motion. So that's another thing that we look at when we're doing the resentment part of this. And when somebody offends us, here's another prayer. We say, this is a sick man or a sick person. How can I be helpful to him? God save me from being angry. Thy will be done. Right? And another resentment prayer is, God, please show me how to take a kindly and tolerant view of each and every one. Okay, so these are just little prayers that we've got to go through. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run a couple more columns here, because and I'm going to go through these instructions, because I'll be honest with you guys, when I did this, I didn't know what the hell was going on. I just followed instructions and I did what they told me to do, and it worked. I didn't have to understand it. I didn't understand it. I didn't think it would work, but I did it anyway. And lo and behold, it did work. So the instructions, we're gonna go through the resentments again, and I'm going to cover fears today as well. You are going to notice that all of the sheets I hand out are going to be the same. Right? The first one was, who do I resent? Why do I have the resentment? The next one is, I'm fearful of. Why do I have the fear? All the rest of this stuff is the same. And again, it's the blank form of page 60. What page is that? It's the blank form of page 65. In our book. So I'm not giving you anything that we don't have. And the third one that we're going to get next week is who did I harm and what did I do? But these are all exactly the same sheets. So even if you only have your fear sheet, you can make a bunch of copies and use it for everything, right? Because it's all the same. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to quickly run through, with Eric's permission, I'm going to run through the one that he did again on his wife stepping out on him, right? So Eric gets married, right? And lo and behold, all of a sudden, his wife starts cheating on him, right? So we're going to see, how does this affect the 3 basic instincts of life? It affects my what? Well, does it affect his self-esteem? He told us absolutely it affected his self-esteem. So I'm sorry, this first part is the social instinct, your natural tendencies, and you got to use this definition sheet, because this is what, and you use it over and over again as you go through these, because this tells you how it's affecting you. So social instinct, your natural tendencies or feelings from birth having to do with people as a group with interests in common. Self-esteem, what we think of ourselves, high or low. Well, she's cheating on him, so that's tremendously low self-esteem, right? Did that affect Eric's personal relationships? Our relations with other human beings and the world around us involves a third party. Do not use the person from column 1. So yes, Eric told us that affected all of his personal relationships, because he didn't want to go out with his friends and talk about things because they might bring this up and he might look foolish. So he isolated himself and he was not honest with his friends. It affected all of his personal relationships, other than his wife, right? Security instinct. Your natural tendencies are feelings of safety, freedom from danger, or harm. Material, wanting money, property, clothing, housing, vehicles in order to be secure. Yes, that affected his security instinct because he didn't know if he was going to be married to her. Is she going to divorce him and take half of everything that he's got? So it affected his security instinct. Emotional, based on our need for another person or persons. Some people tend to dominate, some are overly dependent on others. Absolutely, it affected his emotional instinct. His sex instinct, your natural tendencies regarding sex. Did it affect his acceptable sex relations? You bet it did. He told us that he didn't ever want to have sex with a woman again, and yet he still did. And I mean, he was just all messed up because of this. So it absolutely affected it. But eventually they weren't having sex. It affected it. Hidden sex relations are sex lives that are contrary to society, God's principles, or our own principles. Now somebody else, Eric didn't go out and have an affair when this was going on, but somebody else might have. Somebody else might have said, I'm going to get even with that. And they might have gone out and done some of their own. But he just kind of stayed in the marriage and didn't do anything. Now ambitions are your plans. That's all about the future. So did this affect his social ambition? Your plans to gain acceptance, power, recognition, prestige? I mean, he's not going to take a promotion at work and move somewhere because he doesn't know if he's going to be married. It affected that. His sexual ambitions. He was planning out his whole life with this woman, and of course it affected that. His security ambition. Your plans to gain material wealth. For the same reason as the social, it affected all of these things. So Eric's whole life was affected by this, and he was angry. Now we have to look at what's the exact nature of our wrongs, right? So what's my wrongs, faults, mistakes, defects, or shortcomings? Exact, very accurate, methodical, correct. The essential characteristic of a thing: wrong, acting, judging, believing incorrectly. False, something done wrongly, an error, mistake. So let's go to selfish. Strictly material, property, money, housing, clothing, vehicles, etc. Well, before all this happened, he was spending money on snowmobiles and things of that nature, but after she cheated, he went crazy spending money on material things to make himself feel better. So that selfishness, absolutely. Dishonest. You can either be dishonest by lying, or you can be dishonest by not saying something. So all during the counseling process, and whenever she wanted to talk about it, he was dishonest by saying, I have nothing to say. So by omission, and he was like, it doesn't bother me. So he was lying and he was dishonest. So these things were going on too. Self-seeking or frightened. He was absolutely frightened. For fear of not being accepted, fear of my needs, wants, feelings not being met, people will think less of me. Absolutely, he was frightened, and he was also self-seeking. What I want matters more than what you want. He did tell me, and by the way, I have his permission to talk about this, he did tell me that he was, when they first got married and everything else, he was always the one that decided where they go on vacation, where they go out to dinner, we're going to go by this house. So he was self-seeking, and he had great expectations, and he said that when he's looking back on it, that he pushed her away. And maybe, he's going to take some responsibility for this, right? Just a little bit. And this was even more true after it happened. Inconsiderate. Did I fail to consider how they felt, their wants, their needs, their beliefs, how I affected them? I mean, after this happened, he was completely inconsiderate and didn't really give the counseling. He was just very cold to her and wouldn't do anything, so he's very inconsiderate. So all of these things were true in this, right? Now, when me and Eric were talking about, we were going over this in his 4-step, and again he said, God, talk about anything. We were going over this, and and he's going, there's no way I'm going to make amends to her, and I'm like, Eric, we're doing the 4-step here, we're not even there yet, don't even worry about it. Don't even worry, I'm not asking you to do that. He goes, okay, and we just went through the process. But I'll tell you guys, by the time we got to that 9th step, and this was kind of a mistake on his part, but this was bothering him so much, he just ran. One of the first things he did was go to his ex-wife and talk to her for about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, making amends for all of these things on somebody that cheated on him, right? Because he wanted to take care of his side of the street. And that was one of the first ones he did, because he knew that if he did this, he would feel freedom, right? But again, we're not there yet, so we're going to do this. So again, the instructions, guys, it tells us that we're going to do all of these people that were resentful at first, just lay them down. And remember, I can list my boss more than one time. I got my boss yelled at me in front of other people. I got my boss here, bonus checks, right? So you can have the same person down more than once for different reasons. But we're going to list all of these first. We're going to do the cause. The cause for all of these should be in no more than 6 words, right? I don't want a big, lengthy explanation that's going to get you angry. Just put down a few words what the cause is. Then, one at a time, we're going to go through column 3, and we're going to see how it affected us, right? So we're doing all of this. When we're done with this, then we're going to go to column 4, and we're going to do what our part is. The reason we do it this way is because we're going to start to see patterns in column 3. That's why I want to do them all here, and then when we get to the 4th column, the exact nature of our wrongs, we're going to start to see patterns there. So again, we're going to do them one at a time. Now I'm going to run, our book says fancied or real, right? So I'm going to run one. Did I do this last week? Did I talk about how I was working a lot and my boss was getting huge bonus checks? Did I talk about that? Okay, so I sober up, right? I'm not working these steps. I'm sober. I'm getting up every morning at 5:30. I'm going to the gym. I'm working all day. After work, I'm going to a meeting, and then I'm going home. And I did that 7 days a week. And my sales were going through the roof. They were going through the roof, and I was probably selling maybe 30 to 35% of what our store was doing, and I was doing all kinds of extra stuff. And we made plans 6 months in a row. Now, when we made plans 6 months in a row, my boss was getting astronomically large bonus checks. Huge bonus checks, right? And I looked at the bonus checks he was getting, and I said, that son of a bitch. I'm the one that's doing all the work here, and he's cashing in on me working 7 days a week. And I was so freaking pissed off that he was getting these large bonus checks. You know what I was helping the other salesmen. I was freshly sober and I was doing all these things. But I was tremendously angry that he was getting big bonus checks, right? So let's see how that affected how this affected me, right? Let's see here. Social instinct, right? Self-esteem, what we think of ourselves, high or low. Well, that affected me both positively and negatively, because I was telling myself that I was doing all the work, right? But I wasn't getting any recognition. So positively and negatively, it was affecting me. Was this affecting personal relationships, our relations with other human beings in the world around us? Well, it affected a lot of my personal relationships, because I'm at the water cooler and I'm going, that son of a bitch, my boss, that guy, man, I'm lucky if we even see him. I don't, and so people were looking at me funny because I'm bad-mouthing my boss, right? So yeah, it affected my personal relationships because I was running off at the mouth about how he wasn't doing his job. Security instinct, right? Wanting money, property, clothing, housing, vehicles in order to be secure. Well, I wanted more money. And it was, and I saw him getting bonus checks that I felt were mine. I should have gotten, even though I'm not the manager, right? So yeah, it's affecting that. Emotional, based on our need for another person or persons. Some people tend to dominate. Some are overly dependent on others. I'm going to check it because I wasn't getting, I thought that I deserved more kudos from everybody, and I wasn't getting it. Sex instinct, acceptable sex relations. If I had a day, if it was the day and maybe I saw how big of a check he was getting and I was completely pissed off and I had a date that night with somebody or possible, and I'm in a horrible mood because of this thing, you bet it can affect it. Absolutely, man. Hidden sex relations, I'm not going to check that one. Social ambitions, your plans to gain acceptance, power, recognition, prestige. I'm so pissed off that I'm not going after any promotions at work, right? I was just too angry at everybody. Security ambitions, again, your plans to gain material wealth. For the same reason, I'm going to check that. Sexual ambitions, maybe, maybe not. Now let's get to this part, right? What is the exact nature of my wrongs? Okay. Was I selfish? Yeah, I wanted my check and his. I'd call that selfish, right? Was I dishonest? to commit to do out and out lies. I was so angry, I was a little bit dishonest, and was saying that he really wasn't doing a good job, when in retrospect I see that he was working very hard and doing a good job. Was I self-seeking? What I want matters more than what you want. My needs matter more than yours. My feelings or comfort comes first. Yeah, I was self-seeking because I wanted everybody to say, hey, look at John, look at what he's doing. Was I frightened? Sometimes when I was bad-mouthing him, I was like, oh my God, what did I say? I can't believe I did that, because I could not control my emotional nature, because I had not worked these steps. Now let's get to the last one, inconsiderate. Did I fail to consider how they felt, their wants, their needs, their beliefs, how I affected them? Well, you know what? The guy, when I looked at it, he actually worked more hours than I did. He was responsible for hiring and training everybody. He had to take care of the customer complaints. He was there every morning at 7 a.m. When I actually looked at all of the things he did, it occurred to me that he absolutely deserved his bonus check. He did, not me. Right? So I'm checking all these. So when I ran this was one of those that is fancy to real. This was fancy. This was all in my head. When I ran the columns and I looked at all of this, that resentment went away of its own accord. Poof, it was gone. Right? So this thing that had been bothering me just disappeared of its own accord. So I made it up. And you know what? I find that most of my resentments, when I do it this way, most of the resentments in my head disappeared of their own accord. So by the time I got to the fifth step, talking about it with my sponsor, there were only just a few of them that I needed to talk over with him, and that I really, really needed to pray about. So you see, does everybody kind of understand this? So you sit down and you keep a piece of paper with you, because you'll be walking through the grocery store, you'll see a head of lettuce, and it's going to remind you of some son of a bitch, and write the name down. We got to get these names down on paper, right? We got to, why do we have them? We got to see how they're affecting us. They're killing us, man. And again, it's because they're threatening one of our basic instincts of life, right? My social instinct, what people think about me, what I think of myself. My security instinct, what I need to feel safe and secure, right? And then my sexual instinct, what sex that I need to stay happy, right? And then all of these same things in the future. So these are all affected. And then here's the big part, man. We got to look at what our part is. And again, for me, when I began to see all kinds of patterns up here and here, and again, a lot of these just disappeared of their own accord. So again, I'm just going to do a quick review of this, and we'll move on to fears. I cannot do anything, and these are my notes, not the book. I can't do anything about any other human beings on earth, but I can do something about my relationship with God and keeping my instincts under control, right? My instincts, right? I don't want to be so angry that I kill. I don't want to be so greedy that I steal. I don't want to be want sex so bad that I rape. I got to keep these things under control here, right? So I got to keep my instincts under control where I don't have to get angry. If I don't have to get angry, I'm in much less chance of drinking than I am if I just continue to get angry over and over and over again. So the first column right here, the first three columns, I learned how resentful I was, right? And how that blocked me off from God, right? Now, this first one here, the second column, I learned that it's not the people that I'm angry at. I'm not angry at the people. I'm angry at what they did. I could put any name over here, and if they did the same thing, I'd still be angry. So it isn't the people. It's what they did to me that made me angry. Now when I got to column 3, I discovered it's not even what these people did to me. It is how I chose to react to it based upon my relationship with God and whether or not my instincts are under control or not. Right? I mean, it's crazy. So remember, we read the woman in the book. I think you had to leave, but page 551, make a note and read that. The woman in the book blamed her mother for her lack of education. Nonsense. She blamed her mother for her failed marriage. Nonsense. She even blamed her mother for her alcoholism. No. She became an alcoholic because she drank a lot of whiskey. When we do this process, we're going to realize that we are no longer victims, right? So when we replay what the cop did to us 5 years ago, replay what Uncle Bill did to me 10 years ago, replay what my mom did to me 15 years ago, my dad did to me 20 years ago, right? People who are long gone, they're controlling my thinking with this anger. If they control my thinking, they control my life. I don't want any people, they're not even, so many of these people are dead. I don't want them controlling my life. Now in column 4, we look at what we did, right, to get the ball rolling, and we look at what is the exact nature of our wrongs, right? So the resentment was the wrong, but the exact nature of it, right, was my selfishness, my self-seeking, my dishonesty, my fear, and my inconsideration of others. That's the exact nature of my wrongs, right? So when I hear a fifth step of somebody, I don't care that they committed adultery 42 times. I don't care that they stole 324 times. I don't care that they lied 10,526 times, right? I do not care about that. What I care about is what in him, right, because I only hear the fifth steps of men, what in him caused him to do this in the first place, right? That's what we talk about in the fifth step, right? These are the defects that I'm going to become willing to let loose in 6. They're the shortcomings I'm going to ask God to take away in 7. I've got all the names for my list for step 8 that I'm going to make amends for in step 9. So this sets up all of the action steps. If we don't do this, we can't go forward. This is it. This is the big one, man. Now we keep praying. When we're doing this, we keep praying, and if we have questions, we contact our sponsor or call anybody in this group. Call me. I don't care. I'll call you back if you got a question. The other thing that we're going to learn is we're going to learn that justified resentments block us off from God just as much as unjustified. So, you know what, man? If somebody did something to me when I'm a kid, right, and I'm carrying that with me, guess what? That's going to get me drunk just as much as an unjustified one, like the one that was in my head about my boss, right? It controls your thinking, it controls your decisions, it controls your life. You're giving these people the power to kill you, because if you drink again, you might die, right? So a lot of us say, if they hadn't done that to me, I wouldn't have to be the way I am today, right? I say bull, man. That's victimization. We do not have any place for victimization in AA. We're all adults, and what happened to us in the past does not have to control what we do today, right? And I'm going to say that if you guys have a resentment in your head today, I'm going to say that it's not true. I'm going to repeat that. You got a resentment in your head today, it's not true. And I don't care if this was physical or sexual abuse when you were a kid. It's not true today. It might be based on truth. It might be partially true. But we play these things over and over and over, and we distort them. We distort them, right? And they're killing us. So we got to start to understand that people that do these things to us are not, perhaps they're not bad people, but sick people. That's the key. These people were sick, right? And if they didn't do them to us, they might do it to somebody else. So if we can consider this, maybe we can straighten out some relationships while people are still alive, right? Once people are dead, it's too late, man. My parents, they're both dead before I sobered up, right? It's too late once people are dead. Now, when I forgive people and I look at my part and I pray for them because I want to be free of these things, that doesn't mean that I approve of what they did. Doesn't mean I'm going to take them by the hand and skip down the path of life with them. It means that I am going to not let these resentments control and dominate and possibly get me drunk again, right? I want to get rid of these things. So when this is what happened to me for the resentments. When I did the resentments, okay, number 1, I saw how many I had. I had about 150. Number 2, I saw how they blocked me off from God. I saw that it's not the people I'm mad at, but what they did to me. Then I saw it's not even what they did to me, but it's how I reacted to a threat against my basic instincts, right? I saw that resentments are a waste of time. They paralyze us from doing anything worthwhile. They never did us any good. They never straightened out any relationships. They never made us any money. These resentments never made us feel better, only worse. They block us off from God. We don't feel good. We become insane and start to think about taking a drink, and we end up drunk all over again. Now, we saw how people have controlled us and dominated us through our whole lives. Here's the great thing, though. I saw how stupid they were, and 95% of these resentments disappeared almost immediately when I got them on paper and I ran these columns. The other 5%, if you got to get therapy, go ahead if you work with your sponsor. But I found that praying for these people until you can cross them off, till you no longer feel anger, worked for me. Now, the amazing thing is, I used to think I wasn't going to be a real person when I got rid of this stuff out of my head. But God is going to replace these resentments with the opposite. He's going to give us serenity, peace of mind, happiness, compassion, love, and goodwill towards men. Right? And then we're still on the 4th step. We're not even anywhere further. And that makes us much less chance of getting drunk. Right? So, and then of course we saw what we did to start these things in motion, right? I was pissed at the IRS, but I was the one that wasn't paying them. I was pissed at the cops, but I was the one who was driving drunk, right? I was pissed when my boss yelled at me, but he yelled at me because I did something, right? So, I mean, there's all these things that we have to look at. Now, God never gave us anything bad. We alcoholics take them to extremes. So, what's an example of a good resentment? Let's say that I'm sitting around the store. I sell tile, all right? I'm sitting around the store, and I'm going, it's slow. I'm not making any money. All of a sudden, I see this guy over there, and he's cleaning up his section of the store, and he's keeping busy, and I'm looking over at him, and I'm going, look at that son of a bitch over there, right? And all of a sudden, I say, well, boy, I better clean my section. So I go over there and clean my section. That's a good resentment. All of a sudden, and then I'm done, I go back, and I'm saying, it's slow. I see the guy going through his lead book and making calls of past customers, and I go, look at that, look what he's doing. Maybe I better do the same thing. So I get my lead book out, I start calling, and all of a sudden I hit a few sales. So resentments can be good, right? God didn't give us anything bad. It's just that we screw them up, man. So they can be good. So let's see here. Okay, guys, we're going to go to fears now. So let's go back to the book. We are on page 67. Okay, so we should have a line under there. The last full paragraph. Put a line above it across the whole page. We should have end of resentments above the line, and underneath the line we should have start of fear. Right. So just draw a line under these matters straight. Draw it across the whole book and the whole page rather, and underneath it write start of fear, and above it you can write end of resentments. Right. So, notice that the word fear, underline fear, is bracketed alongside the difficulties with Mr. Brown. So that's referring to the previous page. Mrs. Jones, the employer, and the wife. Okay, let's highlight to the end of the page there. This short word somehow touches about every aspect of our lives. It was an evil and corroding thread. The fabric of our existence was shot through with it. It set in motion trains of circumstances which brought us misfortune we felt we didn't deserve. But did not we ourselves set the ball rolling? Question mark. Okay, so at the bottom of the page we're going to write ask sponsee / yourself, right? Because whenever I say ask sponsee, you're also asking this question to yourself. And even when you're going through the book later with somebody, you're still going to ask yourself this. So ask sponsee / yourself, how much does fear play a role in your lives? How much does fear play a role in your lives, whatever. How much does fear play a role in your lives? And we're going to discover that when we do the same thing with fears that we did with resentments, right? Because fears block us off from God every bit as much as resentments do. So, sometimes we think fear ought to be classed with stealing. It seems to cause more trouble. Okay, so highlight the next to paper. So highlight, we reviewed our fears thoroughly. We put them on paper, just that little bit. Okay, so again, it's telling us we put them on paper, even though we had no resentment in connection with them. Okay, highlight the next two sentences. We asked ourselves why we had them Wasn't it because self-reliance failed us? So right next to that, those two lines off to the left, let's write cause of fear. Cause of fear. You know, so for example, I'm doing everything I can to save my job, everything, but I still might lose it. Then my family's going to go hungry, right? That's going on in my head, right? Self-reliance was good as far as it went, but it didn't go far enough. Some of us once had great self-confidence, but it didn't fully solve the fear problem or any other. When it made us cocky, it was worse. Perhaps there is a better way. We think so. Highlight the next sentence. For we are now on a different basis, the basis of trusting and relying upon God. Next to that, we're going to write third step. That's the third step. We're trying things different. Let's try things differently, right? Remember, we got a new employer. We got a new boss. We trust infinite God rather than our finite selves. We are in the world to play the role. Highlight the next three lines. He assigns. Just to the extent that we do as we think He would have us and humbly rely on Him, does He enable us to match calamity with serenity. Okay, so right next to that, we're going to write fourth step promise. Fourth step promise. Right there. Calamity with serenity. So, and again, I've got Eric's permission, right? But here we got Eric, right? He sobers up. The guy that was here last week, he sobers up. As soon as he gets sober, he ends up getting divorced in sobriety, right? Then a little bit later, he discovers that he's got cancer, right? And they give him a year to live, right? He's been going strong for 3 years now, but they give him a year to live. He cannot work, right? He loses his house, right? The doctor makes a mistake and says there's no reason he can't work when he absolutely can't, and she put that in his file. So now he's not getting his disability, right? So now he's got no money, lost his house, no job, and he's in severe pain, taking chemo, right? And yet when you say, Eric, how are you doing? He says, my life has never been better. Can you imagine? My life has never been better. I don't know. He says I'm his sponsor, but I don't know about that because I draw so much strength from this guy. But that is what matching calamity with serenity. And that's because he's humbly relying on God. That's because he did this thoroughly, and then he cleaned it up in steps 8 and 9, right? So he got these promises, and he really is. It's amazing when I see the guy. We never apologize to anyone for depending upon our Creator. We can laugh at those who think spirituality the way of weakness. Paradoxically, highlight, it is the way of strength. It is the way of strength. The verdict of the ages is, highlight the next 3 lines, that faith means courage. All men of faith have courage. They trust their God. We never apologize for God. You can stop highlighting there. Instead, we let Him demonstrate through us what He can do. Okay, highlight to the end of the paragraph. We ask Him to remove our fear and direct our attention to what He would have us be at once we commence to outgrow fear. So the first part of that, let's write the fear prayer. That's a fear prayer right there. Okay? And then the last part, at once we commence to outgrow fear, that's a 4-step promise. And I'm sorry, we were supposed to write 4th-step promise next to matching calamity with serenity. So write 4-step promise there, and then write 4th-step promise right next to at once we commence to outgrow fear. Right? So I've got something to do, man. It's like, oh man, I got this meeting with the regional manager and I'm terrified. It's going to go bad. I'm going to get fired, blah, blah, blah. You say something like, God, please remove my fear and direct my attention to what you would have me be, right? And our book tells us you do this, at once we're going to commence to start to outgrow these fears, right? So this is a very valuable prayer, and it helps us immensely, right? We're not going to be totally fear-free. Nobody ever is. Just like the resentments, right? I'm a little bit afraid of the dark. I mean, I'm not going to be running full speed through somebody's backyard and when it's midnight because I can't see. I might get hurt, right? I'm not going to be climbing a tree and swinging around like a monkey. I'm a little bit afraid of heights because I might fall and hurt myself. So we do have fears or common sense, right? But we have a lot of irrational fears. We have a lot of, by the way, under outgrow fear, let's draw a line across the whole page. Above it, write end of fear. End of fear. So that's all we're reading in the book today. And we're going to write one more thing right near the bottom. We're going to write fear blocks us from our talents. Fear blocks us from our talents. Oh my God, they're going to make fun of me because I'm not going to do that perfectly, so I'm not even going to try. Right? Oh, I can't go back to school. I'll be in there with younger people that are smarter and quicker than me, right? Fear blocks us from our talents. Fear prevents us from doing things we know we should do, right? And it also prevents us from stopping doing things that we know we should stop doing. So we really have to deal with this fear business, right? Now, so again, we got the 2 4-step promises. We got the fear prayer. Fear blocks us from our talents. It really does, guys. We all have fears. We have fears about our marriage, fears about our children, fears about our jobs, the IRS, the police, the feds, the church, right? We're going to lose something of material value. We're going to go to jail. We might lose our job, might lose our house. We're going to lose a personal relationship. We're going to lose face. People are going to think less of me, right? Fear controls and dominates us, right? I'm going to lose my position in society. When we've got all these fears, God cannot get in, right? And again, like resentments, we can only see one fear at a time. So we go from fear to fear to fear. We can only see one at a time. Oh, I'm afraid we're going to get divorced, and when I get divorced, the kids won't talk to me anymore, right? Because they're going to think it's my fault. So we've all got these fears, and they're really hampering our life. So we're going to do the fears the same way we did the resentments. Okay, so I made a little mistake and wrote some things on this, so disregard my writing. When you look at this, read, I am fearful of. Okay, so we're going to write all these things, right? So, the funny thing is, I discovered that just about everybody on my resentment list was on my fear list. Just about everybody on my resentment and fear list was on my harms list. I didn't understand. I figured that out by the time I did my second 4-step. I was kind of slow in this. But I'm still, I'm afraid of my boss. Why? Because he can fire me. Eric's afraid of his wife. Why? Because she can divorce him. I'm afraid of the IRS. Why? I owe him money. So we're going to do, just like resentments, we're going to do the first column all the way down, get everything we can. Then in a few words, we're going to put, why do I have the fear, all the way down. And then we're going to do exactly the same thing, running these columns with that same definition sheet all the way across. So I'm going to do one here. Where did my sheet go? Is that mine? Is that yours?
That's fine.
How did I lose it?
I don't know.
I might have to borrow yours. There it is. No?
Here, go ahead, borrow mine.
Well, I couldn't have gone anywhere. Right? Here it is. Okay. This definition sheet is very important. So let's look. I'm afraid of the IRS, right? Let's get rid of that. I was angry at them because they were taking all my money, right? But I'm afraid of the IRS. Why do I have that fear? Jail. They can put me in jail. That's why I'm afraid of them. I've been cheating them for years. So I'm afraid of the IRS because they can put me in jail. So now let me see how this affects me here, right? So I'm really afraid, man, because I owe them a lot of money. I've been cheating them for years, right? So fears, a feeling of anxiety, agitation, uneasiness, apprehension, etc., may be temporary or continual. Okay? So social instinct, your natural tendencies or feelings from birth having to do with people as a group and interests in common. Self-esteem. I'm afraid they're going to put me in jail. That affects my self-esteem. I'm not walking tall. My gosh, I'm a lousy guy. They could put me in jail. Personal relationships, our relations with other human beings in the world around us, involves a third party, not the IRS. So does my fear of going to jail affect my personal relationships? Hell yeah. I mean, I'm not myself when I'm talking with other people. I sobered up. I was scared to death, man. I mean, and when I'm drinking, I was scared to death. It affects all of my personal relationships, and I certainly don't want to talk about this with anybody. So I'm being evasive and hiding things from people that I know. So it affects my security instinct. Does your natural tendencies or feelings of safety, freedom from danger or harm. Material, wanting money, property, housing. Yes, it affects my security instinct because when they're done with me, they're going to take everything I got. Everything. Emotional, based on our need for another person or person. Some people tend to nominate, some are overly dependent on others. Maybe. I mean, if I'm not sure, I'm going to check it and talk about it with my sponsor. Sex instinct, your natural tendencies regarding sex. Again, I just got off the phone with the IRS, or I'm thinking about it. I got a date that night, or I'm talking to my significant other. I am not myself. Yes, of course it can affect that. Hidden sex relations, our sex lives that are contrary to society. God's principles are our own principles. You know, that could be like if you have an affair going on, or you do some other stuff. I'm not going to check that one. Ambitions, your plans or great desires, that's the future. Social ambitions, your plans to gain acceptance, power, recognition, prestige. I'm not going to go for that promotion because I think they're going to throw me in jail. Of course it's affecting that. Security ambitions, your plans to gain material wealth. Now why would I do that? Because the IRS they're going to take it all anyway. So this is affecting my future. My sexual ambitions, your plans regarding your sex lives, either acceptable or hidden. Well, you know what, man? I'm not even going to bother with her. You know, she might be the love of my life, but I'm going to be heading to jail. So what's the difference anyway? Yes, it affects everything. Now, what's my deal in all this, right? Okay, was I selfish? Well. Shortcoming, falling short of what is expected. Was I selfish? Well, I'm claiming 10 deductions because I need that money now for alcohol and drugs. Yeah, I'm selfish. I don't have to pay my taxes. I'll use the services. I'll use the police to protect me and the ambulance if need be. But I'm not going to pay my way because I'm different. I'm better than you guys. And by the way, I need the money for drugs and alcohol. Right? I need every penny of it. Dishonest. Right, by commission. Well, of course I'm dishonest. I'm claiming 10 deductions. Very dishonest. Self-seeking. What I want matters more than what you want. Yeah, man, you pay your taxes, sucker. I'm not paying mine. Of course I'm self-seeking. Am I frightened? Yeah, I'm frightened as well because they're, frightened that I'm going to get caught. Inconsiderate. Did I fail to consider how they felt, their wants, their needs, their beliefs, and how I affected them? Well, I'm inconsiderate in the fact that I don't feel I have to pay my fair share when you guys do. So you bet I'm inconsiderate. So I'm all of these things, right? So basically, this fear of going to jail and this resentment that they're taking all my money is all my fault. All my fault. I did everything for that. Everything, right? Another one, let's see, family. My family, right? I'm out using drugs and alcohol. Now, I was afraid there was a small inheritance from my father when he was dying, and you know what? My sister's a lawyer and she's in charge of it. I'm afraid she ain't going to give me what's my part because I'm using. You're just going to use it all on drugs and alcohol. So I'm terrified that I'm not going to get my share of money, right? We can go through and do all of these things exactly the same, and then we get to what's the nature of my wrongs. I'm selfish. I want that money. I am going to blow it on drugs and alcohol. I'm dishonest. I'm telling them that I'm not using. I'm self-seeking. Of course, what I want matters more. Matter of fact, I should get more money than you guys. I'm afraid they're not going to give it to me. And I'm inconsiderate of the fact that she's right. If she gives me that part of that inheritance, it's going to be gone in a minute anyway. So I'm all of these things, right? So this fear is all my doing as well, right? So again, all of these, right? Another one, it talks about principles too, right? Principles, right? So a principle would be like, I'm single and I don't have any kids. I'm afraid people are going to think I'm less of a man, right? Now that's a principle that's accepted by society. And for that reason, I can go across and run these columns as well. It affects my self-esteem. It affects my personal relationships. It affects all of these things, right? So these are things that we tell ourselves, or they can actually be sayings and things of that nature. So we got to look at those things that piss us off and that we're afraid of as well. So again, guys, when we're doing the fear column, we're going to do this one all the way down first. Then we're going to do the cause. Then we're going to go down and we're going to do the third column all the way through to see the patterns. And then when we get to here, we're going to see what our part in is in it. And we're going to start to see patterns with these fears, right? So you just stay diligent and just keep working on this. We got 2 weeks left to finish this thing. And, just if you keep working on it, finish the resentments, finish the fears, work these columns, right? So we still have a little bit more that I'm going to go over today. So again, these fears are going to keep us from doing things we know we should do, right? Oh, golly, I want to go back. I really want to go back and finish my education. I want to get that master's degree. You know what, man? I'm afraid that I'm not going to measure up, right? Those young kids these days, they know computers better. I'm going to look like an idiot. You know what? I'm not even going to go, right? And they also keep us doing things that we know we shouldn't do. For example, oh my God, I'm afraid I'm not going to have enough to pay my mortgage this day. You know what? I've been kind of scooping some deals from these people. I'm going to keep scooping those deals so I get the commissions that aren't really mine. But I have to do it because otherwise I might lose my house. I better just keep doing that dishonest crap, right? So fear is going to keep us doing all kinds of things that we shouldn't do. Now, fears are going to revolve around, and again, these are just my notes. You don't have to write it if you don't want, but fears are going to revolve around one of these three things. Okay? I'm not going to get something I really want. That's a big fear, man. I want that so bad. I want that, and I'm afraid I'm not going to get it, right? 2, I'm going to lose something I've already got. Oh my God, I'm going to lose that house. I know I'm going to lose that house. God, I'm going to have to do something. I'm going to have to step on some toes so I don't lose my house. So I'm not going to get something I want. I'm going to lose something I've already got. And then here's a really big one for me. I've done something to another human being I shouldn't have done, right? And I'm worried that they're going to catch me at it. And then when they do catch me at it, I'm going to not get that thing, or I'm going to lose that thing anyway. So that's a big one, because we do things to other humans and we are terrified that we're going to get caught. And when the jig is up, we're in trouble then, right? So again, we do have the good fears, the fear of heights and the fear of the dark, right? But if your fear of the dark keeps you from going out at night, you better look at it. If your fear of heights keeps you from riding in an escalator, an airplane, then you better look at that one too. So again, like resentments, fears come to us through threats to our 3 basic instincts, right? Our social instinct, my status in the community, my security instinct, what I need to feel safe and secure, and my sexual instinct, my desire to be with the opposite sex. So it's how we react to these darn things that make us very fearful. Now, if my instincts are under control and my relationship with God is good, right? You guys can say or do anything to me, right? Or try to make me afraid, and I'm going to be just fine. But if my instincts are not under control and I do not have a good relationship with God, then the slightest little thing is going to set me off and running, right? So fear, resentment, remember, was incorrect judgment of other people. Fear is incorrect believing. Remember, they say this is a disease of perception, right? So fear is incorrect believing. Most of them are. I mean, fear of not running out into a busy street, that's just common sense, right? Most of our fears are incorrect perception. And we're living in hell when we're scared to death that we're not going to get something we really, really want, and then through dishonesty, right, we manipulate, we get that thing, then we're scared to death we're going to get caught, and then we're going to lose it, right? So without God, all I had in my life was a life spent going after money, property, prestige, and sex. That's all I had. All I could do was satisfy my basic instincts without a God in my life. So I cheated, I lied, I conned, right? And I knew right and wrong, but I did it anyway, and I was afraid of getting caught. And because I knew the difference between right and wrong, I got a lot of guilt, shame, and remorse built up, right? So we've got many names and institutions that are on the same resentment and fear list, right? Now, through this whole process, we are going to pray, right? We're going to call our sponsor and seek counsel and talk to them. My sponsor taught me the two important things about prayer that we have to start and we have to continue. He said every time we pray, we change just a little bit, right? So we keep praying every day. All of a sudden, as time passes, we are going to be a different person. Now, courage and faith is going to replace the fear, right? So these fears, God isn't going to leave any more holes in our head. So when we get rid of these fears, He is going to replace them with courage and faith. And when I first read this thing in the Big Book, faith means courage. All men of faith have courage, right? So I'm thinking to myself, well, if you have faith, you don't need courage because you know everything's going to be just fine, right? That's what I thought. I said, if people that have faith, they don't have any courage because they know everything's going to work out. What I didn't realize is that our faith is imperfect. It's imperfect. And, you know how much faith God gives us? He gives us just enough to do it. Even just enough to walk through our fear and get it done. That's why men of faith have courage, right? Because it's imperfect. Now, when I did this fear inventory, again, 95% of my fears disappeared. The other 5% through prayer, work with my sponsor, and for other people, therapy. I didn't go to therapy, but we can get rid of them. We can get rid of that 5%. So again, fears let us do stuff we know we shouldn't do, and they prevent us from doing stuff we know we should. They block us from our talents, man. They keep us from doing what we should do. When we pray, right, when this little prayer here, please remove my fear and direct my attention to what you would have me be, Father, right? That little prayer right there, why does it work? I think it works because courage and faith can't exist on the same plane as fear. So when we say this, our fear tends to go away a little bit. Just like anger and love. So when I'm praying for somebody who hurt me, again, I'm not condoning what they did. All I'm doing is saying, I refuse to let that person take up space in my head and dominate and control me. I want him out of there. I want to be free. Right? So who do I resent? What do I fear, man? Well, what did they do? Why do I have the fear? We get these things on paper. What part of self is affected? What feelings did I create in others? Which character defect is involved, right? We got to go through this. So what we're going to do is we're going to stop that tight feeling in our chest. We're going to stop the racing mind. I mean, come on. I mean, my first 6 months when I wasn't doing these steps, I was just anxious and nervous all the time. My mind was running at night, worried about stuff and how I'm going to get even. And when we do all of these things, and then I lashed out. I couldn't control myself. So when we do this, we're going to get rid of that crap. And we're going to be in much less chance of getting drunk, right? So again, fears we won't measure up. Fear we're going to fail. Fear of hard work. Right? These are things that we don't have to have those fears anymore, man. And if we try something and we don't do it perfectly, big deal. We're learning, right? We've got to get rid of these things. Yep.
Could you say that prayer again?
Well, that prayer.
What is it?
That's it. That's at the end of page 68 right there, and I just changed it around a little bit.
Yeah.
It says it says we ask Him to remove her. So what I say is God, please remove my fear and direct my attention to what you would have me be. And it's not what you would have me do; it's what you would have me be, right? What you would have me be. Our book tells us that we do all of this work to put ourselves in a position so that we can be of use to God and other people. I used to think that said so I can be of use to God and other people, because I know what to do, but I don't know what to do. All I can do is do these steps and hope that God is going to use me accordingly. So, God, remove my fear and direct my attention to what you would have me be. Then it says, at once we commence to outgrow fear. These are two of the greatest promises in the book. Everybody thinks that we only have those 9-step promises, but being able to match calamity with serenity, guys, that's when your life is a storm. It's a storm. You just lost your job. Your kid is in trouble. Things are just going nuts. You've done these steps. You can walk through that storm with serenity, right? Because freaking out and catastrophizing isn't going to help anybody, right? So that's what it means. We can match calamity with serenity. And these things, we work these steps to the best of our ability, and that happens. And again, these. When God cannot get past our resentments and our fears, when we let God into our head and we do what we think God wants us to do, we're not thirsty anymore. We're not thirsty anymore. That's just the benefit. As far as I'm concerned, that's a small benefit because my life is so much better. But that is definitely, if you're newly sober, that is a great benefit. But my life just keeps getting better and better. And the more I work these steps. So, next week we're going to have about an hour, 10 minutes too. This is, if anybody has any questions, I will try to answer them. But the 4th step is basically stuff you guys got to do at home. And again, this sheet, man, I kept going through these definitions over and over when I'm running the 3rd column. And that really allowed me to see how these fears and resentments were affecting my whole life, right?
I need one of those too.
I got one, yep. I'll get you one. Does anybody have any questions? Next week we're going to do the, I combine them. We're going to do, it's the harms, the sex and harms that we do others. But guys, this is setting us up. This is setting us up to do all the rest of the steps. If we do just to the best, I'm not saying do it perfect. Just do it to the best of your ability. We're not perfect people. But if we do it to the best of our ability, it's going to set up steps 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And again, you do this, you really will. You heard Eric last week talking about how those wonderful promises are true in his life. I see it happening over and over. One of the other fellas, his name is Eric too. He's another sponsee of mine. He went through these steps thoroughly. He was broke and looking at jail and everything else. He just got promoted at my company. I got him a job as a warehouse guy 3 years ago. He's now working in the office, just moved in with his girlfriend. These promises, we do this work, they do come true. But does anybody have any questions regarding the 4th step? It's a simple process. Do column 1. I am resentful at. The cause affects the exact nature of my wrongs, and we use our definition sheet. The fears I am afraid of. Why do I have the fear? Affects the exact nature of my wrongs. It's all the same. Right? And we're not analyzing ourselves. We're not saying, Mom put me on the toilet sideways when I was 3. That's the way we're not doing that. We're looking at flawed thinking processes that are screwing us. They're screwing us. They literally are. And if we can get rid of these flawed thinking processes, honest to God, we're in much less chance of drinking. Much less chance. And of course, our lives just go through the roof. They skyrocket. So, anybody got any questions? All right. Well, I guess we can end with the 3rd step prayer. God, I offer myself to Thee to build with me and to do with me as Thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do Thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of Thy power, Thy love, and Thy way of life. Peace.